The Galactic Treaty Council chambers hummed with the quiet tension of 300 delegates from across known space. Massive holographic displays hovered above the central dais, showing the aftermath of orbital bombardment on a small frontier world. Ambassador Q-Ren of the Zalari Confederation rose from her seat, her crystalline exoskeleton catching the light as she addressed the assembly. "We are gathered to address a violation of the oldest standing edict in our shared history," she began, her translator converting her harmonics into standard galactic common. "The Avaran hegemony has broken the rule of non-interference with human territories, established after the Proxima incident over 8 centuries ago." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Many species present had only heard of humans in historical texts or legends. The oldest races exchanged knowing glances. They remembered. "For those unfamiliar with the edict," Q-Ren continued, "it was encoded into our foundational treaties after humanity demonstrated defensive capabilities that nearly collapsed 3 star systems. The agreement was simple. Humanity would withdraw to their core territories, and in exchange, the galactic community would respect their sovereignty absolutely." Ambassador Trell, representing the Avaran hegemony, rose in protest. "The mining colony on Ishara 4 was never formally registered as human territory. Our intelligence indicated minimal human presence. This is bureaucratic overreach. The presence of even one human citizen constitutes protected territory under the original edict," interrupted Elder Voss of the Council Archives, his ancient voice silencing the chamber. "The language was deliberately absolute. Do not mess with humans." There were no qualifications or exceptions. As the council descended into argument, a silent transmission was broadcast to ships throughout the sector. Footage of an Avaran warfleet in flames against the dusty orange backdrop of Isharaf, and one small merchant vessel departing the chaos. The rule had been broken, and now everyone would remember why it existed in the first place. Captain Arya Kessler leaned against the viewport of her ship, the Wanderlust, watching cargo drones transfer mineral containers into the hold. Ishara 4's dusty orange landscape stretched beyond the spaceport, interrupted only by the massive extraction facilities that formed the backbone of the colony's economy. "Manifest is verified, Captain," called Lyra Vaughn from the cargo bay. The Avaran woman's violet skin contrasted with her silver flight suit as she moved with predatory grace among the crates. 15 tons of processed xeridium, 4 canisters of rare earth elements, and 1 package of personal items for the outpost on Helios Station. Arya nodded, brushing a strand of dark hair from her face. "What's our timeline looking like, Mech?" The Martian engineer glanced up from his diagnostic panel, his augmented eyes whirring as they refocused. "Engines will be ready in 30 minutes. That dust storm yesterday did a number on our intake filters." Mech Tau was 3rd-generation Martian, his ancestors having genetically modified themselves for the Red Planet centuries before. His reddish skin and enhanced respiratory system were hallmarks of that heritage. "Fine. We'll depart when you give the all-clear." Arya turned back to the viewport, squinting at a flicker of movement in the sky. Military-grade ships were uncommon in this sector, but she'd spotted 3 in the past week, all Avaran design. The comms unit beeped, and she tapped her wrist display. "Kessler here." "Arya, it's Jen at port control. Got a minute?" The voice was strained, unusual for the normally cheerful port administrator. "Sure, what's up?" "Privately, if you don't mind." Arya frowned, stepping into the small captain's quarters off the bridge. "I'm alone. What's wrong?" "There's chatter about Avaran military vessels increasing patrols in the sector. Word is, they're looking for something, or someone." "Any idea what?" "No, but the timing's suspicious. Right after that big archaeological find in the western deserts." Jen paused. "Arya, you know I wouldn't normally say this, but you might want to consider delayed departure, at least until we know what's happening." Arya considered this. The Wanderlust was just a modified merchant freighter, lightly armed for defense against pirates. If the Avarans were moving military assets into the region, staying put might be safer. Thanks for the heads up, Jen. We'll delay 24 hours. Kessler out. She returned to the bridge, where Q-Ren, their Zalari diplomat and navigator, was reviewing star charts, the crystalline being turned, faceted features catching the light. Captain, I sense your concern, Q-Ren said, the translator at her neck converting her crystalline resonances to words. Is there a problem? Possibly. Avaran military movement in the sector. We're delaying departure. Q-Ren's crystalline form pulsed with amber light, her species equivalent of a frown. Unusual. The hegemony rarely shows interest in frontier worlds. Unless what? Last week's archaeological expedition, the human artifacts they uncovered. Arya tensed. Few remembered that Ishara 4 had once been a human military outpost, abandoned centuries ago when humanity receded from galactic politics. Most believed the relics had been stripped long ago. What exactly did they find, Q-Ren? Unknown. But the expedition leader, Dr. Elias Hammond, requested immediate Galactic Council protection for the site. Q-Ren's form shimmered. Protection that was denied due to bureaucratic delays. Arya cursed under her breath. Hammond was one of the few other humans on Ishara 4, an academic who'd spent years studying lost human outposts. She'd transported him to remote dig sites several times. We should warn him, she said. If the Avarans are interested in human military tech. A blinding flash lit up the viewport, followed by the concussive thud of orbital bombardment. Arya rushed to the controls, activating external cameras. Avaran warships had appeared in low orbit, firing precision weapons at the western desert, precisely where Hammond's expedition was located. Get me port control, Arya commanded, but the comms remained silent. Damn it! They're jamming communications! Lyra burst onto the bridge, her Avaran features tight with anger. My people wouldn't dare attack a mixed colony without provocation. This violates at least 6 treaties. They're not attacking the colony, Arya replied grimly. They're after whatever Hammond found. She turned to Mektal. Prep for immediate departure. Engines aren't ready, the Martian began. Override safety protocols. We need to get to that expedition site before the Avarans secure it completely. As the crew scrambled to their stations, Arya studied the warships through the viewport. They were small, strike vessels, designed for quick surgical operations rather than prolonged combat. This wasn't an invasion. It was a grab-and-run mission. Q-Ren, can you bypass the communication jammers? We need to warn Hammond. The crystalline being interfaced with the ship's communication array. Attempting narrow-band transmission? Unsuccessful. However, I am receiving a weak distress signal from the expedition site. Put it through! Static crackled over the speakers. Then, Hammond's voice emerged, strained and breathless. Found active systems. Prometheus Protocol. Avarans taking prisoners. Kessler, if you receive this. Activation sequence is... The transmission cut off abruptly. Arya's blood ran cold. She'd heard of the Prometheus Protocol in her military days, a last-resort defense system installed at critical human outposts. Legend said it could turn an entire planet into a weapon. Captain, Lyra said quietly, what exactly did your people leave buried here? Arya stared at the continuing bombardment. Something the Avarans shouldn't be messing with, and neither should we. She turned to her crew. Change of plans. We're evacuating the Helios station immediately. What about Hammond and his team? Asked Mektal. We're a cargo ship with minimal weapons against military vessels. We'd be shot down before we cleared atmosphere. Arya's voice was hard, but her eyes betrayed her conflict. Sometimes, survival means knowing when to retreat. Q-Ren's crystalline form darkened to deep blue. Captain, incoming transmission. It's being broadcast on all frequencies. The main screen flickered to life, showing the scarred face of an Avaran military commander. His violet skin was marked with the golden tattoos of high rank. Attention residents of Ishara. I am Warlord Thraxus of the Avaran hegemony. We have secured dangerous weapons technology from the Western Desert. For your safety, we are establishing a temporary military presence in this system. The camera panned to show a line of captives, Hammond's expedition team, along with several port workers. Arya recognized Jen among them. These individuals will be detained for questioning regarding illegal weapons research. All vessels are grounded until further notice. Compliance will ensure your safety. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in silence. Lyra was the first to speak, her voice tight with shame. This is not the way of my people. Thraxus is a renegade warlord, seeking to build his own power base. The Hegemony Council would never sanction this. Whether they sanctioned it or not doesn't matter right now, Arya replied, her military training reasserting itself. What matters is that they've taken hostages and violated sovereign territory. Human territory, Q-Ren added quietly. They've broken the oldest rule. Ishara 4 is a mixed colony, Arya countered. Barely a dozen humans among thousands of settlers. Irrelevant by treaty standards, Q-Ren insisted. Even one human citizen classifies this as protected territory under the edict. The Galactic Council will be obligated to respond. The Council is 5 days away at best, Mektow pointed out. Those people may not have 5 days. Arya stared at the frozen image of the captives on the screen. Hammond, Jen, people she knew, people who had trusted her. Her years as a fleet officer before becoming a merchant had taught her when to fight and when to run. This time, running wasn't an option. Mech, what's our weapon status? The Martian blinked in surprise. Standard point defense lasers. 1 missile tube with 3 conventional warheads. Nothing that would scratch a military vessel. And if we had access to planetary defense systems? Understanding dawned on Mech's face. You think Hammond found working defense platforms? After all this time? The Prometheus Protocol wasn't just a weapon, Arya said quietly. It was an integrated defense AI. If it's still operational after 8 centuries, it would need a human authorization code, Q-Ren observed. And likely biometric confirmation, which is exactly why the Avarans took Hammond alive. Arya's expression hardened. And why we need to get to him before they extract what they need. Lyra stepped forward. Captain, I can help. I know Avaran military protocols. If they've established a forward base, I can get us inside. You'd be branded a traitor by your own people, Arya warned. The Avaran woman's eyes flashed. Thraxus and his followers are the traitors. They shame our entire species with this dishonorable action. Arya nodded. Decision made. Mech, forget the engine safety checks. Get us airborne in 15 minutes. She turned to Q-Ren. Contact any council representatives in the sector. They need to know what's happening here. As her crew rushed to their tasks, Arya returned to the viewport. The ancient rule existed for a reason most of the galaxy had forgotten. Humanity had withdrawn from galactic politics centuries ago, content to let their legend fade into myth. Now, Warlord Thraxus was about to discover why you don't mess with humans, even when they seem few and forgotten. The Wanderlust skimmed low over Isharafi's desert landscape, its sensors tuned to avoid detection. Arya had modified the freighter's emission signature to appear as a maintenance vehicle, a trick she'd learned during her military days. In the co-pilot's seat, Lyra monitored Avaran communications. They've established 3 perimeter bases around the excavation site, the Avaran reported. The prisoners are being held at the central command post. Thraxus is personally overseeing the operation. Any indication they've accessed the Prometheus system yet? Arya asked. Negative. Their communications suggest frustration. Hammond is apparently being uncooperative. A small smile touched Arya's lips. Good man. Q-Ren joined them on the bridge. Her crystalline form dimmed to minimize light reflection. I have made contact with a council representative on Helios Station. They are dispatching observers, but diplomatic protocols prevent immediate intervention. Diplomatic protocols, Arya muttered. People are going to die while they debate jurisdiction. The council fears escalation, Q-Ren explained. If they officially acknowledge this as a violation of the Human Non-Interference Edict, they would be obligated to invoke severe sanctions, possibly military action. And no one wants another Proxima incident, Mektow added from the engineering station. Arya had only read about the Proxima incident in classified fleet archives, 8 centuries ago. A minor border dispute had escalated when a coalition of species attacked a human research outpost. The resulting demonstration of human military capability had terrified the galaxy into establishing the Non-Interference Edict. We're approaching the secondary perimeter, Lyra announced. Recommend we land behind the eastern ridge. Ground sensors are weakest there. Arya guided the ship to a landing site 3 kilometers from the Averon position. As the engines powered down, she activated the tactical display, showing thermal signatures of Averon troops and equipment. 23 soldiers at this outpost, she noted. Light armor, standard energy weapons, 2 atmosphere skimmers for rapid transport. The command post will be much more heavily guarded, Lyra warned. We're not hitting the command post yet. Arya pointed to a structure at the edge of the archaeological dig. This is a power regulation station. If Hammond found active systems, the Averans would need to tap into the power grid to access them. Mektow studied the schematics. Cutting power would buy us time, but they'll have backup generators. We're not cutting power, Arya replied. We're going to use it to send a message to Hammond. The Martian's eyes widened in understanding. The expedition would have established their own power monitoring systems. If we create a specific pattern of power fluctuations, Hammond will recognize it as a communication attempt, Arya confirmed. It's an old human military technique. She outlined her plan. Lyra would use her knowledge of Averon protocols to get them past the perimeter. Once inside, Mech would access the power systems while Q-Ren monitored Averon communications. Arya would locate the Prometheus access point Hammond had discovered. And then, Q-Ren asked, then we find out if the legends about human defense systems are true. Arya checked her sidearm, a standard energy pistol, barely military grade. Gear up. We move in 30 minutes. As the others prepared, Arya retreated to her quarters. From a hidden compartment beneath her bunk, she retrieved a small metal case. Inside lay a fleet officer's insignia and identification chip, relics from her former life. She'd left the service after disagreeing with certain military actions, choosing the independence of merchant life over following orders she couldn't morally support. Now she was willingly walking into combat again. She inserted the chip into her wrist computer, granting access to encrypted military protocols that might help interface with the Prometheus system. The insignia she left in the case. She wasn't doing this as a fleet officer, but as a human who couldn't stand by while her friends were in danger. When Arya rejoined her crew, she found them waiting in the cargo bay, armed and ready. Lyra had donned modified Averon military garb that would allow her to pass as one of Thraxus's soldiers at a distance. Mech carried a pack of technical equipment, while Q-Ren had shifted her crystalline form to a less conspicuous configuration. Everyone clear on the plan? Arya asked. They nodded. Remember, this is a rescue mission, not a war. We get our people out. We disable whatever Hammond found so the Averans can't use it. And we leave. And if we're discovered, Mech asked quietly. Arya checked her weapon. Then we improvise. Twilight painted Isharafor's sky in shades of crimson and gold as the team approached the Averon perimeter. Lyra led the way, her knowledge of Averon patrol patterns proving invaluable. They paused behind a rocky outcropping as a security drone passed overhead. "They've established a standard 3-layer security grid," Lyra whispered. "Automated drones, motion sensors, and guard patrols. The power regulation station is inside the second layer." "Can we bypass the sensors?" Arya asked. Mektow removed a small device from his pack. "This will create a temporary blind spot. Range is limited, about 50 meters, and it'll only work for 10 minutes before their systems detect the anomaly. That's our window. Then," Arya surveyed the terrain ahead. "Lyra, you'll create a distraction at the southern perimeter. Nothing dramatic, just enough to draw attention. Mech, Q-Ren, and I will slip through the blind spot and reach the power station. Once we're inside, Lyra rejoins us using the access codes we establish." Lyra nodded, adjusting her disguise. "Be careful, Captain. Thraxus is known for his brutality, even among Avarans." As Lyra departed, Arya turned to the others. "Ready?" Mech activated the sensor disruptor, and a soft pulse emanated from the device. "Blind spot established. 9 minutes. 50 seconds remaining." They moved swiftly across the open ground, keeping low. In the distance, alarms sounded as Lyra's distraction took effect. Avaran soldiers rushed toward the southern perimeter, drawing attention away from their approach. The power regulation station was a prefabricated structure, hastily integrated with the ancient systems Hammond had uncovered. Mech made quick work of the electronic lock, and they slipped inside. 7 minutes until the sensor disruptor fails," he reported, securing the door behind them. The interior was cramped, filled with monitoring equipment and power converters. Glowing conduits ran along the ceiling, carrying energy from Ishara Fo's main power grid to the archaeological site. "Mech, access the power control systems," Arya instructed. "Q-Ren, monitor Avaran communications. I need to know the moment they suspect something's wrong." While they worked, Arya examined the facility. Most of the equipment was standard colonial technology, but at the far end of the room, a section of wall had been removed to reveal something far older, a control panel with the faded insignia of the Human Federation fleet. "Found something," she called softly. The panel was inactive, but undamaged, preserved by the dry desert conditions for centuries. Arya ran her fingers over the surface, feeling for the hidden biometric scanner that standard fleet installations would include. A small section of the panel warmed beneath her touch, recognizing human DNA. A soft blue light emanated from previously dark displays, and text appeared. "Prometheus Defense Network. Standby mode active authorization required." "It's operational," she breathed. After 8 centuries, the system was still functional. No wonder Hammond had been so urgent in his transmission. Mech joined her, eyes wide. "That's impossible. No power system should function after so long." "Prometheus wasn't just a defense network," Arya explained. "It was designed to be self-sustaining, with redundant power generation and maintenance protocols. A true artificial intelligence, programmed to protect human interests at all costs." "Captain," Q-Ren called urgently. "Avaran communications indicate they've detected our presence. Security teams are converging on this location." "How long?" 3 minutes, perhaps less." Arya turned back to the Prometheus console. "Mech, send the power fluctuation pattern. Let Hammond know we're here." She placed her palm on the biometric scanner and entered her fleet identification code. The display changed. "Secondary authorization accepted. Primary command. Authorization required emergency protocols available." "It recognizes me as fleet, but not as a commander," Arya explained. "We need Hammond. He must have discovered command-level access." "Captain," Q-Ren reported, "I'm detecting a coded response in the power fluctuations. It appears to be coming from the central command post." Mech analyzed the pattern. "It's Hammond. He's signaling that he's located in the central detention area, heavily guarded." Lyra's voice came through their comms. "Perimeter breach successful. I'm approaching your position. Be advised, Thraxus has ordered the prisoners transferred to his ship in 30 minutes. Our timeline just got compressed, Arya said grimly. Mech, what emergency protocols can we access with my authorization level? The Martian examined the console. Limited defensive options. We can activate perimeter drones, but not the main weapon systems. We might be able to trigger a security lockdown of the excavation site. Do it. Lock down everything except our route to the command post. Arya made her decision. Change of plans. We're going to extract Hammond now. That's suicide, Mech protested. The command post has at least 40 soldiers. We don't need to fight them all. We just need chaos. Arya gestured to the Prometheus console. And we have 8 centuries of legendary human defense technology to create it. As Lyra joined them, Arya outlined her revised plan. They would use the perimeter drones to create multiple security alerts, dividing the Avaran forces. Under cover of the confusion, they would infiltrate the command post, locate Hammond, and bring him back to complete the Prometheus activation. Once activated, what will Prometheus actually do? Q-Ren asked. I don't know, Arya admitted. The system was designed to adapt its response to the level of threat. It might be anything from communication jamming to orbital defense platforms. Or planetary-scale weapons, Mech added quietly. Arya's expression hardened. Which is why we need to control the activation. I won't let this escalate to another Proxima incident. But I will not leave our people in Thraxus's hands. She entered the commands to activate the security drones, then turned to her crew. This is where it gets dangerous. Anyone who wants to remain behind can do so. I won't think less of you. We're with you, Captain, Lyra said, speaking for all of them. Arya nodded, feeling a mixture of pride and fear. Then let's remind the galaxy why they made that rule in the first place. Alarms blared across the Avaran compound as ancient security drones rose from concealed bunkers, their targeting systems identifying all non-human life forms as potential threats. They didn't attack. Arya had disabled their weapons, but their presence created exactly the distraction needed. Avaran forces are dividing to address multiple security breaches, Q-Ren reported as they moved swiftly toward the command post. Thraxus has ordered the prisoners prepared for immediate evacuation. They reached the edge of the central compound, taking cover behind supply containers. The command post was a prefabricated structure surrounded by Avaran soldiers, many looking nervously at the drones hovering at the perimeter. Lyra, what's the fastest way to the detention area? Arya asked. Eastern entrance, through the auxiliary power room. Lyra pointed to a less guarded section of the compound. That would put us only 20 meters from where they're likely holding the prisoners. Mech, can you trigger a power surge in the main generator? Nothing catastrophic, just enough to force them to switch to backups. The Martian nodded, working his portable terminal. On your mark, Captain. Arya checked her weapon. Everyone clear? We go in fast, locate Hammond and extract immediately. No heroics. She took a deep breath. Mark. The lights throughout the compound flickered and died as Mech's power surge took effect. Emergency lighting activated seconds later, casting everything in a dim red glow. In the momentary confusion, the team slipped past the guards and into the eastern entrance. The auxiliary power room was empty, its occupants having rushed to address the main generator failure. They moved quickly through the corridors, following Lyra's directions toward the detention area. 2 guards ahead, Q-Ren whispered, her crystalline senses detecting movement around the corner. Arya signaled for the others to wait, then removed a small device from her belt, a sonic disruptor, non-lethal, but effective. She rolled it around the corner, and a high-pitched whine filled the air. There was a thud as the guards collapsed, their equilibrium destroyed by the targeted sound waves. Clear, she called softly. The detention area was a converted storage room, its door secured with a digital lock. Mech made quick work of it, and they entered to find 10 prisoners huddled against the far wall. Dr. Elias Hammond, looked up in surprise, his bearded face showing signs of rough treatment. "Kessler, what the hell are you doing here?" he rasped. "Rescue mission," she replied, moving to help him stand. "We've accessed Prometheus, but it needs command authorization." Understanding dawned in Hammond's eyes. "You triggered the drones. Smart." "We need to move now," Lyra urged. "Thraxus will figure out what's happening soon." As they helped the prisoners to their feet, Jen caught Arya's arm. "They took 3 of us to the excavation site an hour ago. Amanda, Krell, and Sophie. They haven't returned." Arya cursed inwardly. The plan had just grown more complicated. "Hammond, can you make it back to the power station with Mech and Q-Ren? The Prometheus console is active there." "Yes, but what about—" "I'll find the others with Lyra." Arya turned to Mech. "Get them to the station. If we're not back in 20 minutes, activate whatever defenses you can and get off planet." "Captain," Mech began to protest. "That's an order. These people are the priority." She glanced at Hammond. "Doctor, whatever Prometheus is capable of, make sure it targets military assets only. No civilian casualties." Hammond nodded grimly. "Understood." As Mech and Q-Ren led the freed prisoners toward the exit, Arya and Lyra headed deeper into the compound. The Avaran woman moved with practiced efficiency, checking corners and listening for approaching guards. "The excavation site should be this way," she whispered, pointing down a corridor lined with temporary lighting. "If they took prisoners there, Thraxus must believe they need multiple human DNA signatures to fully activate the system." "Then we're running out of time," Arya replied. They encountered 2 more guards, dispatching them quickly with sonic disruptors. As they neared the excavation site, the corridor opened into a vast chamber that had been cleared of sand and debris. What they saw inside made them both freeze in awe. The chamber contained a massive underground facility, clearly of human design, but unlike anything in Arya's experience. Suspended in the center was a pulsing crystalline structure, its surface etched with intricate patterns that seemed to shift and change as they watched. "What is that?" Lyra breathed. "The heart of Prometheus," Arya whispered. "Not just a defense AI. It's a quantum processor." She had heard theories about such technology, computers that existed partially outside normal space-time, capable of calculations that defied conventional physics. At the base of the structure, several Avaran technicians worked at makeshift consoles. Nearby, 3 human prisoners were held at gunpoint, their hands placed on scanning devices. And supervising it all was a towering Avaran with elaborate gold tattoos covering his violet skin, Warlord Thraxus himself. "They're forcing them to interact with the system," Arya observed. "But without command authorization, they can only access diagnostic functions." "How do we get them out? There are at least 15 soldiers in there." Arya studied the chamber, noting the power conduits running along the ceiling. "We don't fight them. We shut down their access." She pointed to a junction box near their position. "Can you overload that safely? Nothing that would damage the central structure?" Lyra examined it. "Yes, but it would only create a temporary disruption." "That's all we need." While Lyra worked on the junction box, Arya activated her comms. "Mech, status?" "We've reached the power station," came the Martian's reply. "Hammond is interfacing with the Prometheus console now. He says he can activate localized defense protocols without full system awakening. Tell him to stand by. We've found the others, but we need a distraction." "Standing by." Lyra completed her modifications to the junction box. "Ready on your mark." Arya took a deep breath, steadying herself. "Mech, tell Hammond to trigger security protocols in the excavation chamber only." "Mark." Several things happened simultaneously. The junction box erupted in a shower of sparks, plunging half the chamber into darkness. At the same moment, panels in the walls slid open, revealing dormant security drones. Alarms blared, and the Avaran technicians scrambled away from their consoles. "Release the prisoners!" Thraxus bellowed, his deep voice carrying over the chaos. "We need their biometric data!" In the confusion, Arya and Lyra slipped into the chamber, moving low and fast between equipment clusters. They reached the prisoners just as an Avaran guard was attempting to move them to a safer location. Lyra disabled the guard with a swift strike, while Arya helped the prisoners to their feet. "This way," she urged, pointing toward their entry point. "Captain Kessler?" One of the humans, Amanda, a geologist Arya had transported several times, looked at her in shock. "How did you—" "Explanations later. Move." As they retreated toward the corridor, a voice rang out behind them. "The human captain. I should have known." Arya turned to see Warlord Thraxus striding toward them, an energy weapon leveled at her chest. His massive frame blocked the corridor, cutting off their escape. "Get them out of here," Arya told Lyra quietly. "I'll handle this." "Captain!" "Go. That's an order." As Lyra reluctantly led the prisoners toward an alternative exit, Arya faced the Avaran warlord. "You're violating at least 6 treaties," she said calmly, "including the oldest one." Thraxus laughed, a deep rumbling sound. "Treaties written by the weak to contain the strong. Your people abandoned this world centuries ago. What remains is salvage, not sacred ground." "That's not how the edict works," Arya replied. "Even one human makes this protected territory. You know that." "The old fears are just that. Old. Humanity is scattered, divided. A shadow of what it once was." He gestured toward the crystalline structure. "Yet you left wonders like this, forgotten in the dust. Technology that could reshape the balance of power. Technology you don't understand. Then enlighten me. Captain." Thraxus took a step closer. "Your command codes could fully activate this system. Join me, and I will spare your crew and these colonists. Oppose me, and they die." Arya's mind raced. She needed to stall for time, to give Lyra and the others a chance to escape. "Why risk galactic sanctions for this? Your own government will disavow you." "Because Prometheus is not merely a defense system." Thraxus's eyes gleamed with ambition. "It is the key to understanding human quantum technology. Technology that has eluded the greatest minds of 12 species for centuries. With it, the Avaran hegemony would become the dominant power in the quadrant." "And you would become the dominant power in the hegemony," Arya concluded. "Precisely." Thraxus lowered his weapon slightly. "Your species withdrew from galactic politics. Captain, you abandoned your role as guardians and peacekeepers. Someone must fill that void." For a moment, Arya felt the weight of his words. Humanity had retreated centuries ago, tired of conflict and seeking isolation rather than continued engagement with galactic affairs. In that vacuum, warlords like Thraxus inevitably arose. "Last chance, Captain. Your command codes or your crew dies." Arya straightened, her decision made. "Prometheus was never designed to conquer, Warlord. It was designed to protect." She tapped her wrist communicator. "Hammond, full activation. Authorization Kessler Alpha 7 Omega." Thraxus lunged forward, but it was too late. The crystalline structure at the center of the chamber pulsed with brilliant light, and a resonant hum filled the air. The ground beneath them trembled as ancient systems awakened. "What have you done?" Thraxus demanded, raising his weapon again. A calm, genderless voice echoed throughout the chamber. "Prometheus Defense Network activated. Threat assessment in progress. Unauthorized military presence detected. Initiating graduated response protocols." The security drones that had remained dormant suddenly activated, their weapon systems powering up with a high-pitched whine. But instead of firing, they emitted a pulse of energy that disabled every piece of Avaran technology in the chamber. Thraxus's weapon went dead in his hands. Throughout the compound, similar pulses disabled Avaran ships, weapons, and communication devices. A disabling pulse, Arya explained, allowing herself a small smile. Prometheus was designed to protect human interests with minimal loss of life. It disables technology rather than destroying it outright. Thraxus roared in anger, discarding his useless weapon and charging at Arya with bare hands. She sidestepped, using his momentum against him, a combat technique she'd learned during fleet training. But the Avaran was surprisingly quick for his size, recovering and landing a glancing blow to her shoulder. Pain lanced through Arya's arm, but she maintained her stance, circling warily. "You've lost, Warlord. Even now, orbital defense platforms are activating. Your ships in orbit will be disabled, your ground forces contained." "Then I will at least have the satisfaction of killing you," Thraxus growled, pressing his attack. They fought across the chamber, a deadly dance of strikes and counters. Arya was quicker, but Thraxus had reach and raw strength. A powerful blow caught her in the ribs, sending her sprawling against a console. As Thraxus advanced for the killing strike, the crystalline structure pulsed again, and a focused energy beam struck the floor between them. Direct threat to human command personnel detected. Lethal force authorized. Thraxus froze, understanding the implicit threat. The next beam would not miss. "Prometheus protects its own," Arya said, rising to her feet despite the pain in her ribs. "Stand down, and you might survive this." For a moment, the warlord seemed to consider his options. Then, with a roar of defiance, he lunged at her again. The defense system responded instantly. A precision energy beam struck Thraxus's shoulder, causing him to stumble but not killing him. A warning shot. "Final warning, stand down or be neutralized." Thraxus halted, breathing heavily. Defeat was written in his posture, but his eyes still burned with hatred. "This isn't over, human. Your kind cannot hide behind ancient machines forever." "We're not hiding," Arya replied. "We just prefer to be left alone. Now, on your knees, hands behind your head." As Thraxus reluctantly complied, Arya's communicator activated. "Captain," came Mech's voice, "Avaran forces are surrendering across the compound. The orbital platforms have disabled 3 warships in high orbit." "Any casualties?" "None reported. The Prometheus protocols appear to prioritize non-lethal solutions." Arya nodded, relieved. "Secure the prisoners and prepare the Wanderlust for departure. We need to contact the Galactic Council immediately." As she guided the subdued warlord from the chamber, Arya glanced back at the pulsing crystalline heart of Prometheus. Its light seemed to follow her, acknowledging her as kin. Humanity had withdrawn from galactic politics. Yes, but they had left guardians behind, sleeping in the dust of forgotten worlds, waiting to be awakened if needed. Perhaps it was time the galaxy remembered that. 3 days later, the Wanderlust drifted in orbit above Isharaf, its viewports offering a clear view of the Galactic Council vessels that had arrived in response to the crisis. Arya stood on the bridge, watching as official diplomatic shuttles traveled between the ships. "The Council representatives are requesting your presence at the formal hearing," Q-Ren reported, her crystalline form shimmering with diplomatic patterns. "As the human officer who activated Prometheus, your testimony is considered essential." Arya nodded absently, her thoughts elsewhere. Since the activation of the defense system, sensors had detected similar installations coming online across 3 sectors, dormant outposts responding to Prometheus's awakening call. "What will you tell them?" Lyra asked, joining her at the viewport. "The truth. That Thraxus violated sovereign territory and endangered civilians in pursuit of military technology." Arya turned to face her crew. "And that humanity has no interest in resuming its former role in galactic politics." Will they believe that? Mech wondered. The activation of these defense systems has caused considerable anxiety among the Council species. Some are calling for a new treaty, with stricter provisions. "Fear is a poor foundation for diplomacy," Arya replied. But perhaps a reminder of the old boundaries was necessary. Hammond entered the bridge, looking much recovered from his ordeal. The Council has officially censured the Avaran hegemony. Thraxus and his followers will face trial for treaty violations. And the Prometheus network? Arya asked. They've requested it be deactivated. Hammond smiled slightly. I explained that the system is now in autonomous protection mode, and will remain so for at least a century. It cannot be deactivated without triggering similar systems across human space. Is that true? Lyra asked quietly. Hammond and Arya exchanged knowing glances. True enough, the archaeologist replied. The network was designed with failsafes to prevent forced deactivation. Whether those failsafes extend to other outposts is open to interpretation. A strategic ambiguity, Arya thought. Let the galaxy believe that human defenses were more extensive and integrated than they might actually be. The uncertainty would reinforce the old boundaries. Captain, Q Ren called from the communication station. Incoming transmission from the Council flagship. The main screen activated, showing Ambassador Trell of the Avaran hegemony. His expression was solemn, his formal robes indicating the official nature of the communication. Captain Kessler, on behalf of the Hegemony Council, I extend our formal apologies for the actions of Warlord Thraxus. His operation was unsanctioned and in direct violation of our most sacred treaties. Arya nodded acknowledgement. The apology is accepted. Ambassador, I trust the Hegemony will take steps to prevent similar incidents in the future. Indeed. We have already increased security along our borders and implemented stricter command protocols. Trell hesitated, then added, If I may speak personally, Captain, many of us had forgotten why the edict was created. The legends of human defensive capabilities were dismissed as exaggeration. Sometimes legends exist for good reasons, Ambassador. So we have been reminded. Trell bowed slightly. The Council has reaffirmed the non-interference edict with unanimous support. It will be enforced with renewed vigor. As the transmission ended, Arya turned back to her crew. Prepare for departure. We still have cargo to deliver to Helios Station. And after that? Lyra asked. Arya considered the question. The events on Ishara 4 had awakened something in her, a sense of responsibility she had tried to leave behind when she departed fleet service. The galaxy was changing, power balances shifting. Perhaps humanity could no longer afford the luxury of isolation. After that, we continue as we have been, she decided, carrying cargo, connecting worlds, but with our eyes a little more open. As the Wanderlust broke orbit, Arya cast one last glance at Ishara 4. Beneath its dusty surface, Prometheus hummed with quiet vigilance, a reminder of humanity's past and, perhaps, its future. In the vast darkness between stars, other dormant systems stirred, responding to signals not detected in centuries. Ancient protocols reactivated. Defense networks established connections long forgotten. Humanity had withdrawn, but had never truly left. And the galaxy would remember, once again, the oldest rule. Do not mess with humans.